Hello, everybody. Welcome to this first analysis and improvement session of the season. We have run some other member session, but this is our first ANI. This session will be in English, but for the French speakers that might be present, so pour les personnes francophones qui sont présents, n'hésitez pas à lever votre main à poser des questions en français. La session sera en anglais. So this one will be in English. We'll take questions after each slide or after each block of ANI. You'll see it's a little bit, if you've attended the previous ANI sessions, it's a little bit different in terms of how we put up the videos in this one. So we'll take the questions after each block of ANI. And we'll get started. We'll also have our usual period of question at the end, of course, but we'll also get started with a few introduction slide to the topic. Oops, don't steal the punch. I have with me for this technical chat today are some of our technical team members, myself, Geneviève Pilotto, and Breen Trott from Ontario. Breen, you want to say a quick word?
Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming out.
And we have James Hyland, our program manager for Ontario and Manitoba, Saskatchewan. James.
Yo, hi.
And we have a special guest today, Mike Struthers from Ontario as well. And Mike, do you want to introduce
Hi,
yourself?
everybody.
Mike is an evaluator, active evaluator, and also active in the industry as a snow school manager, director.
Director. Yeah.
Thanks for being here. So remember, for A and I, the first thing you see might not be always the first thing that we see, and that's totally fine. There are many roads that lead to Rome, or to Rome, not to Rome, sorry. I have So we'll be playing the videos one after the other and to compare from more beginners or more intermediate to more advanced. So you'll have some more ideal performance to aim for that you can compare for the other level. For example, like if we talk about freestyle, there's going to be like one example of a higher hand rider and more intermediate or beginner rider. And before we get started, there's a few tips that we want to refresh our mind with, especially at this time of the season. It's always good. So as you know, in CASI, we're using the competencies as filter tools to assess our students' writing at all levels. These are things that we cover in our certification courses. And it's important to always remember that each of those competencies are a blend of our CASI technical skills, and we can always narrow it down to those ideal patterns of movement. So you would recognize this drop of our skill concept. You can find it in our reference guide, page 42. Something that we're using as evaluators, but also as instructors when we're teaching lessons, so at all levels, really, it's the TTPPE, which is an acronym that we use to remember the factors or the elements that could affect performance of the students on the day or the time of the performance, what they're trying to accomplish. So to set our tolerance, we want to think about the tactical, the technical, the physical, the psychological, and environment and equipment. And for this session, as we're doing analysis on videos, we'll focus mostly on the technical and technical because these are easier to pick up on a video. Obviously, you don't necessarily have a zoom in on the equipment of the person or on the state of mind of that person for that day. So tactical is the physical way you're asking students to move down the mountain, or the students are moving down the mountain. And technical is the techniques and movement the students perform or that the instructor is aiming for. These aspects can always be analyzed and continuously improved. And one effective way to develop them is to first understand the movement patterns that's required to achieve specific or technical or tactical outcomes. James, Breen, Mike, feel free to jump in at any time if you see things that you want to add to what I'm talking about. Good.
Yeah, I don't refer back to the TTPPEE model all the time when I'm analyzing people, but it's definitely a great teaching tool to kind of show your students how you're doing it and what you're doing, and that aids in the communication with the students.
Mm-hmm. And you always have these things in the back of your mind. Yeah, you don't necessarily go like with the points, but because you've been trained with that, or you're training people with that, it's always in the back of your mind as like kind of it becomes a reflex at one point. So this is all, so I'm not going to read all of this slide, but this was just to point out what we have as a resource in our reference guide at page 31, if you want to look at it again. These are our core competencies that are very useful, key points to look for, valid for a great analysis for all ability level students, right? Core competencies, it's from beginners to expert. And these are the questions that you should go through. And there's more than that, obviously, but this is an example of how you can use that filter and apply it properly when you're looking at a writer through the lens of one of these competencies. So that's always a good idea to refresh yourself with those before getting the season started as an instructor. These are key points, and bear with me, this is the last slide before we start the videos. These are key points to look for a deeper analysis of more advanced students. So you can regroup those in different categories. Tonight we'll be looking more at these first two, so the technical control and performance, as well as movement quality and body mechanics. As the other two are a little bit harder to analyze on video because, for example, we're limited by only one clip of one rider, so we don't see them evolve on all kind of terrains, and also if you're talking about mental engagement and rider awareness, these are things you might not notice on the videos. Sometimes you can, right? You can tell if somebody is confident dropping in, but it's still limited what you can see on video, of course. Yeah, that's it. Do you have any questions about that? Cool. Okay, so we'll get started with the first video. I think that was Breen. Eh?
Yes, I'm going to tackle the first one.
Okay.
So the first clip is one of the team riders, Nick Verley, and he's hitting the monster box. One thing that you'll notice about Nick is that he's very calm and smooth. He's been doing this for a very long time. So as he's approaching rails, it's easy for him to stay nice and low and calm and relaxed. You can see kind of all of his joints flexing equally, which allows him to stay balanced on top of the feature. When he goes to hit that urban down rail, you can notice that there's quite a bit of banking as he gets on the rail. So his ankle's very relaxed, and he catches the rail with his heel and is able to roll onto the ball of his foot. So that's really helping him be successful here.
Do you want to see it again, Bree?
No, that's okay. Yeah, we can keep moving forward. You can play it again at the end if you want, though, Jen.
Okay.
So yeah, Nick's been doing it for a very long time. He's very calm and cool and relaxed as he's approaching. The next riders that you're going to see, you can tell, have not been doing it for quite as long time. So they're very stiff when they come into the features. So if you're thinking centered and mobile, their joints aren't very flexed equally. This last rider, he's doing much better. So you can see quite a bit of movement with him. But the two first riders, you can tell, are very nervous, and they're just not able to move very much on the features, which doesn't help them.
I'll get back to the...
Yeah, that's okay. We can just kind of keep looping through. Yeah, so very stiff, not a lot of flexion in the joints. Even if you look at the in run, you can tell it's not very smooth. So sometimes they're very flat based, but there's no kind of intention to get onto the rail. One of the people that you see gets quite a bit of air when they jump onto the box. So anytime you're sliding a rail or box, it's really important that you're trying to step onto the feature with kind of as less vertical, the least amount of vertical movement as possible. Nice.
I think just to add one thing there that you saw really successfully with this guy, that's why he looks a little bit better, is the approach, like Breen said. He had intention with his approach, and it allowed him to create separation with the upper body. He had something to push off before he got on the feature. Like you can see his body's there. He rotates before he gets on the feature, as opposed to trying to make those movements on the feature. It's quite hard to do.
You can see him in slow motion here.
This person's doing really well. You can see they're quite a bit more relaxed when they come in, maybe not quite as much as Nick. But back to James here, you can really see the intent here is a little bit off. So it's really important to be taking off of a solid edge, either toe or heel. But as this rider approaches, they're not quite sure, they're not fully committed. So their board goes flat just for a second before they take off. It looks like maybe they wanted to try a board slide, but they got a little bit nervous halfway through. But great save. And there is some control coming off. You can see they get bucked a little bit because their hips aren't quite in the right place at the end of the feature. But they did pull it off, which is awesome.
You can see like the confidence and the speed, especially comparing to the previous people that are more beginner.
Yeah, with being comfortable comes speed. So as you get faster on features, it becomes much easier. So you can see these more advanced riders, like Jen was saying, going quite a bit faster. And then our beginner riders, obviously, they're not as comfortable. They're going quite a bit slower. So that also makes it harder. You're on the feature for a longer amount of time, and you have to stay balanced for a longer amount of time.
Can see here with Nick, I think it's a really good illustration of flow, like how fluidly he moves. You can see, you don't hear the sound here, but I remember when I was filming, it gets on the rail and you barely hear it, like it's like a cat a little bit. And you'll see that here on the first rail, something I wanted to mention as well, on the first urban rail. At the end, like he starts to get out a little bit, but there's no extra tension added to his lower body. He just let it go. He just let it bank to the rail, and then he just gets out like a slightly bit after maybe it was intentional. We can ask him, but it was an inspection run. But you can see
It was not.
no there. Yes, it was. There was no intention. Like there was no tension in the legs.
Yeah.
Yes, it was, James.
Yeah, so it kind of looks like Nick's stepping onto the rail here, which is pretty awesome. And then if you watch it, the next people, there's a little bit more of like a hop, or they get a little bit of air onto the feature, which can kind of send you out of control. I mean, this is a ride on box, so they're doing a pretty good job, but always trying to be as quiet as possible.
And this last person that we saw in the box, they're starting like pressing a little bit. You can see they're starting to be a bit more mobile and they're more relaxed on the box for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything else to add, team? Mike, James, we're good?
Nice job, Breener.
Yeah.
I mean, just the longer you ride freestyle, the more relaxed you become. So it's basically just the more you do it, the easier it's going to get. It's very hard to be loose when you're nervous. So obviously repetition is key.
One thing we talked about that TTPPEE and those three riders hitting that ride-on box. One thing you can't see is the environment, and that was in Dome in China. And there was actually a snowcat parked in the landing, which I think was making people a little bit nervous.
Oh
So
yeah, I
sometimes
saw
those
it.
environmental factors can really play into how people are riding.
I saw it on one of the clips you
Yeah.
yeah, that's a fair point, Mike. Okay, we'll move to the next. We'll just let this one play to the end and then we'll move to the next slide. There's no question in the chat. So don't hesitate again if you have questions, just add them to the chat or keep them for the end. Up to you. Easier for those videos, like if you have a question in one of these block of A and I to just ask the question right away.
Okay, so I'm going to take a look at this next block of videos here. And they're all pretty much turning videos with riders at different levels. And it's looking, using our core competencies as kind of a lens and pretty quickly focused in on the balance over the working edge as a kind of key competency that is either giving these riders some success or making life a little bit harder. So this rider here he's very hesitant to really stand on his edges, to move the center mass into the turn a little bit and to flex those lower joints to find some balance along that edge. There's a number of times where the downhill edge almost comes down onto the snow, and a few of those eek moments. And there's coming up here, so you can see that almost snow spray off the downhill edge sometimes. There's other competencies that are coming into play as well, like the rotational alignment here is making it harder to find that balance on the edge. And I think it's this next turn coming up here. So as he moves on to the toe side, just really fighting to find that balance there. And adding some flex through those stiff lower joints might save that from happening. So kind of two key things that are key through most of these videos: moving the center of mass into the turn a little bit earlier, and then angulating and flexing to find that balance along the edge and really being active with it, versus just passively kind of standing on a flat board. I believe this rider here is riding switch, and is pretty, it's an uncomfortable situation for them, which isn't a bad thing, to put ourselves out of our comfort zone and challenge ourselves. And it's a great way to build that balance along the edge. And it's probably going to help him find balance in his forward direction. Moving on, I think, to the next rider shortly. Yeah, we can probably fast forward through this a little bit, John.
I think I had him. I had this person just regular speed after.
Yeah. Oof.
What kind of tactics would you suggest for this person, Michael?
So I think getting them to use some vertical movement, Breen. I think, traverses with flexion and extension would be really helpful. Some hops during traverses, a lot of those tactics that we come back to in the level one would probably be pretty useful for them to start building that confidence on their edge and to activate those lower joints some more. Also, I think they're also in a place where some mileage, is going to be key. Riding a switch a bunch more to build that confidence as well.
There was a question in the chat along the same lines that Breen just mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what exercise would you start with, front edge or back edge?
Yeah, I think both edges are going to be pretty important to build that balance. But I think that heel side is maybe where they're a little more static, and focusing there a little bit more to get some movement. I think someone was
stop
just
and hops
saying
would be a
about the
good one for this
initiation.
person.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you
Keeping
say,
the hips over the edge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if I could just add one quick thing here, it's like a movement pattern that you're going to see represented across the spectrum, no matter what the rider's ability level is. It's moving up, moving the hips across the board, and moving down to create some sort of connection to the edge. So, like Mike and Breen just said, two great tactics: vertical movement and some edge hops. Both are going to help for hip position. But even just starting statically at the bottom of the run and getting the person used to being, get low, move up, shift the hips across, move down. It's a super easy movement pattern, and you're going to do it for the rest of your snowboard career. So might as well start early.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think another great one could be some stop and hops, another great tactic that we use to really focus on finding that balance on the edge, creating some movement to sink into that edge. Could be a good one as well.
There was also another comment about it seems that the initiator turns with his upper body.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of upper body initiation, especially moving towards the toe side. And yeah, on the heel side there too. And that's, I think, making it more difficult to find that balance rather than moving laterally across, as James was saying, and getting the center mass into the turn. They're rotating to get the turn started and then trying to find the balance late in the turn.
Good. No more questions in the chat, sir. We can carry on with the next rider. These I thought were interesting to put a video of some tactic.
Yeah. So here's a tactic using an arms restricted tactic. And tactic that is focusing on kind of taking the upper body away a little bit, the arms as a balancing tool away, and focusing on moving that center mass across and down, and then using angulation to find that balance through the turn. And first two riders here are doing that a lot more effectively. Moving across the board and then down. And then third rider here is a lot more hesitant and kind of dropping the shoulders in there and there on both the heel side and the toe side, rather than moving the center of mass across and allowing those shoulders to incline a little bit more. And even looking at the tactic, the elbows are dropping quite low into each turn, and making it difficult for them to find that balance along the edge.
So they're probably used to turn this person, the last person was probably used to turn with the upper body a little bit, and by restricting it, they're being restricted in their usual movement pattern while developing a new one.
And I think especially at the turn initiation, Phil here, he's using his feet really to initiate the turn a lot more early with early edging. Whereas Will is trying to use that upper body and kind of having to really use a big effort with the lower body to make the turn start and happen. He's getting it done, but it's making it a lot harder to balance because of that big effort it's using. It's a little bit easier as the pitch mellows out, taking that environment into account. Even there, still the balance is being a little bit more difficult to find.
And questions, have you put it back in their regular writing after this tactic?
Yeah. So it like if I remember this session or how I'd probably build this session would be starting with using a bit of a whole part whole, looking at the riding, using the tactic on easier terrain, progressing the tactic to steeper terrain. So this is probably the second or third time the tactic's been used. And then as those changes are starting to happen, then putting it back into the riding. Often just taking the tactic away, trying the same feelings of, in this case, moving the upper body across, sinking down onto that edge to find the balance, and using that lower body movement to initiate onto that new edge effectively with a little bit less effort.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Thanks. Okay, next rider.
All right. Ooh. Video's coming through choppy here.
Oh, it is? Is it?
Yeah, maybe it's just on my side.
James, do you see it properly or?
Looks good from me, but it actually
Okay.
happened on Breen's videos. They were a little choppy, so
Yeah,
it's probably just connection.
Okay.
yeah. So this is a kind of medium steep pitch at Mount St. Louis, and riders aiming leave for some advanced sliding turns, fairly short radius, and some of the same things here that we were talking about in the last ones. Right? Moving on to that downhill edge nice and early, keeping the body aligned through that transition. Really important as things get that little bit steeper. And moving towards the toe side here, they're sometimes opening the upper body up quite a bit, making it a little bit more difficult to get those hips across effectively and find that balance early on that toe side edge.
Something that's neat is the first part of the pitch is relatively steep, so you can notice how the rider gets on edge very late, and there's basically a lot of braking and a Z pattern. And then as the terrain mellows out, you can see the person start to get on edge earlier, and right away you can see the turns get rounder, which is kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, for some reason, the top of the pitch here is all broken up for me, so I can't actually see that, Breen. But yeah, right about here, it does start to mellow out quite a bit. Okay, and here's where the case where environment is definitely playing in. Almost whiteout conditions, very flat light. But the rider
Jacket's
is,
still open though, baby.
it is, it's still open because Mount St. Louis
Flapping.
will never close. it's also pretty choppy. The riders in those conditions committing fairly well to moving across the board onto that downhill edge. I always tell students and candidates to zip up your jacket because not only do you look like a bit of a tool, but also it just makes it that much harder to analyze what's happening. It's hard to see what's happening with the upper body, what the alignment is like. Those little equipment things
I
can make
wouldn't
a
say,
difference.
just to jump in here, I wouldn't say that
Yeah.
they look like it. I don't know what you say, but I just say that's a personal style that could.
Oh, it totally is. It is. And there's times where it, but when you're looking to get analyzed and have somebody watch you, I think having that is, it's just a distraction for the person who's trying to watch you and analyze. So just makes that little bit of a difference. Now, actually looking a little bit more at that technical riding. So as they move across, they're committing fairly well to moving on to that downhill edge. Then the flex down, though, they're having a hard time timing that effectively to really manage the pressures, both the pressure at the end of the turn and also any pressures that are building up from the terrain, from the bumpiness that's in there. And because it's so white, you've got to be really mobile and loose in those conditions to be able to react to the changes that are coming at you. And they're just following kind of a very set movement pattern and trying to do the same slow flex down at the end of each turn to the bottom and not allowing themselves to adapt as much. I think it's a fairly new turn for them. And so they're in that, still maybe not acquisition, probably more consolidation phase. And they're trying to get that movement pattern happening. They're not quite ready to create variation with that movement pattern. Just a little bit more relaxed lower body is going to help a lot.
And a more patient also from hillside to toe side, like they're
Yeah.
going really quick on the vertical move, like almost like going through the ceiling. So that's something we can tell them to keep it calm a little bit. It's going to allow them to have that natural flexion in between.
Yeah, patience.
I think there's a lot of talk about the vertical here, and that's totally present and awesome. There is rotation happening before edge grip. That's the issue. With this rider is having the most. So if he moves across, or he or she, the person moves across, and they simply try to sink, like Mike was saying, with that vertical movement down without creating rotation, they're still initiating with upper body there.
Yeah.
Right. And it's harder to see, probably maybe because of the jacket, but also you can tell it's a front foot pivot. Like the board whips around. There's so much rotation before edge grip. Right. And so if you're analyzing at this level, if you're student, you see that movement or you see that outcome happen where the board kind of whips around before anything happens, you know that they're creating rotation somehow before they've actually established grip on the new edge. So you want to work that because there's a sequence of events that needs to happen. You need to get grip first, or you're going to lose it and you're going to get all that pressure at the end and you can't handle it. And so just something to think about and look for in your students at that level.
Nice.
Sure. Oops. Let's look at last. And we can see that because they're at the consolidation phase, they're trying to put this all together and like this. So the movement are happening, but it's inconsistent from one turn to the other. So sometimes like the flexion is going to be really down. Sometimes the lift of the rear foot, like James mentioned, is going to be a little bit more intense. So I would say that like the positive thing for this person is that they're moving in a very active way. They're actually being super proactive on their board. So they're gonna see changes happening. Like they're probably developing like new feelings right there. And that's gonna help them to create new pathways to get out of these patterns that prevents them. Like for example, you can see they're staying very closed on the heel side, right? If they were a little bit more open as opposed to push the hips and like jam the weight on the front part of the board, that would make their turn a bit rounder and smoother as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, ready to
Okay.
move on?
Yep.
Oh, is there a question in the chat? No, we're good. Sorry, I'm just admitting someone else. Okay, we know this person.
Yeah. So I think here, seeing that sequence of movements that James has been talking about a bunch, and just how relaxed everything is, moving across the board onto that downhill edge, riding it around, staying super stacked over top of the edge, and just really staying balanced through at every part of the turn.
While we're looking, there was a comment in the chat. Michelle was saying, I often say that it feels weird. If it feels weird, that is a good thing because it means they are making a change in the writing. So I forgot to take off the sound. Can do it again. Sorry, Mike.
No problem. Yeah, so I think James here is just showing that really smooth, relaxed style. Finding that balance really early on each edge, riding it around, getting that center mass into the center of each turn, and just staying really balanced along the edge. Great.
And he moves.
This is a great tactic. You can use this turn shape size as a tactic for every rider that we just saw. Take them to a green run and use this. The intermediate slide turn, it's our bread and butter, and it's the easiest place to make huge movement changes. So it's a cool little tactic to use too.
Yeah. And yeah, dialing the train down, it's always a good idea when you're trying to make changes. When people are in survival mode,
Mhm.
they're not going to be able to really make those changes happen.
Work on our foundations. These are the intermediate sliding turns of the level 1. So that's the level 1 standard, as we all know. And there's nothing like slowing down to make the work. I take a step back. Sorry, lost my train of thought here. But we see that this rider is moving efficiently on this board,
Yes.
right? Like there's not a lot of movement for good things happening. There's no fluff in the writing. There's no like, well, they're looking for balance.
Okay. Here, a lot shorter radius turn happening. A lot quicker movements happening from the rider. And still moving across the board well. One thing that was noticing watching here is that the upper body, that front, well, actually kind of both arms are staying a little bit up and tall, and making it a little harder to commit the weight into the center of the turn.
Why would you say that? Why would in your mind, the harms restrict them?
Well, I think here, just they're kind of blocking opening a little bit on the heel side. You can see there. And just a little bit more openness on that heel side could, I think, help with the balance. Now, it is a quick turn shape, which I think is part of what's happening.
For me, the arms don't bug me.
Yeah,
Like
no,
I don't see it as being a problem
no,
in the writing there. Um, I see what you can mean. Like it could be
yeah,
perceived as, but I think it's also a way to being tonic, like kind of
hmm,
having a certain tonus on the board.
yep,
What you can see here as well, like similar as in the previous video with James, we can see that the rider is moving a little for an efficient result. These turns are quite quick. The terrain is quite green. There was a lot of ice patches as well in there. You don't see them, but I
I
did.
think I think when you're talking about efficiency there, Jen, when you look at the feet, they're being very efficient, moving across the board onto the new edge and really using the lower body well.
Yeah.
Um,
Seems like there's not a lot of effort for the board to be put on edge and
yeah.
look smooth. Anything else you want to add, Breen and James?
No, no, I think looking good.
I would just say the only time arms can become a problem is if the arms that are out are connected to the core and then they start causing over rotation. So when I'm riding, I like to keep my arms really quiet by my side and try to disconnect them as much from my torso as possible so that my feet can do the majority of the work. So usually like a beginner rider kind of has their hands out for balance, but as they get better, if those large hands are connected to the torso, then it definitely adds a lot of rotational energy.
Yeah, for sure. But in this case, like they're not
No, yeah.
wide open. In this case, I would call them a little bit more like brackets for the core brackets.
Mhm.
Mike, did you had anything you wanted to add in this video?
No, no, all good.
Okay. Well, thanks. Are there any questions in the chat here? No. Okay. Whose turn? I think it's James.
Me. Sweet. So this is a good example of sort of some short radius turns, exemplifying the movement pattern that we've kind of gone over a couple of times tonight. Great lateral movement with the hips, good vertical movement. The turning effort is clearly coming from the lower body. Everything is just happening really smoothly. Like there's not a lot of effort needed, and I think we'll see the contrast in the riders that come up here. Just take a look at this one more time. Look at the movement patterns. Look at the shape of the turn. Look at the quietness of the body. These are the things that I'm looking at right now. I love looking at the turn shape, the snow spray, but mostly the overall like picture of the body. What does it look like? Does it look comfortable? Are the arms getting pushed out to the side? Are they getting broken down? These are the things, and quite clearly, this is not happening for this rider.
I wonder who this is.
I wonder who this is. So you have that picture. Now let's contrast it here. Now, the caveat being, obviously, the terrain is different. It's a little bit not as groomed, a little bit bumpier, but we're going for a similar turn shape and size right here. So the same thing, I'm confident to say, would the last rider would look very similar in this environment. So what we want to do is look at what's happening in terms of first when they initiate a turn. So I look at how they're moving across the board. Right there, you see a big arm movement, a big dip. So that tells me that they're using rotation to initiate. And that would mean that the hips are going to be late to the turn. And big rotation there. They're very good at managing it, but you can see got tippy on the toe side there. So sequence gets out of whack when you start things and you don't start from a balanced edge, right? So what you're always trying to do snowboarding is essentially move from edge to edge, balance edge to edge, and sort of fall down the hill with grace, right? And if you can get your center of mass to that point where you can establish edge first before anything else happens, then you get to add all that fancy stuff, the rotation and all the good stuff that we like to do on the snowboard. So we can take a look at this rider here. Kind of a similar thing is happening. There's a bit of oversteering with the lower body. Upper body's not allowing itself to sort of follow the movement patterns. And so they get jammed up a little bit on the toe side edge. Hips get stuck. They never really pass over onto the toe side edge. Great foot pattern, great foot movement, like really fast feet. That's great. That's hard to teach. Now you have to get the foot to move. And the foot, and I say this a lot during the season, the foot is the trigger, right? And it pushes the hips, which is the bullet. Okay, so that's the initiation, the trigger, and then it moves the hips. And we have to connect the hip and the feet, right? So if you move the feet, that means hips go. And that's what a lot of riders, no matter what level you're at, it's just varying degrees because you go faster and steeper and harder terrain, and those bad habits come back. So foot is really important, but the foot has to inform the hip.
I
And you're
like
going to see this.
the
Sorry?
the foot has to inform the hip. I like that one-liner.
Yeah.
Put it in the chat so people can read it one more time.
So you're going to see this is consistent with all the riders that come up here. You come on usually a session with me, no matter what level you're at. You're going to see a similarity. You're going to hear some very similar things. There's always other things happening, but if you don't correct the initiation phase of the turn, or you don't move to where the core problem is, then you're kind of just putting a band-aid on a situation. So like this rider wants to turn, you can see that upper body's just like, God, I want to go. But those are the urges that you have to start resisting. And you go, okay, what has to happen? Well, I have to loosen the ankle. And the ankle is going to help my hips move across and then establish something that I can stand on. And once you're standing on it, then you get to do the stuff that you need to do. So watch the upper body. It just wants to go in. You can even see the person's like looking in. And there's no, like, for sure, there's a little bit of vertical movement that they could work on, which might help loosen up those ankles in this environment, but they're looking down and they're rotating into that turn. So we try to quiet down the upper body and get them to focus on those feet. We'll watch this rider. Can I just use your name? We'll watch this rider here, and you can see the feet, they move, and the hips are directly across, right? So feet, hip, there's no real disconnection between those. And there's no need for this upper body to rotate down the hill, right? The upper body is kind of a passenger on top of the hips. It's more of the hips are a tray and the upper body's just kind of hanging out. And you use the upper body a ton when you need it. But if you don't need it, don't add it.
Thanks,
right? We're trying to affect the board and steer the board from the most effective point. So it starts at the hip or starts at the foot and it moves straight up. Quick feet. Sometimes too quick.
Sometimes too quick.
Yeah, and quick feet takes a long time to accomplish.
Yeah,
for sure. A lot of muscle memory.
So if you're looking to, speed up how fast the foot moves, move to some easier terrain, get used to using that, but never forget that the hip has to be attached to that sucker. Because I see a lot of riders, especially in the level 3 and even getting into the level 4, where their feet are so quick, but the hips are not attached, right? So you really want to move that center of mass is the most important part.
Mm-hmm. Can create a lot of corrections movement happening. If the feet move too quick, then at some point everything is not coordinated.
Yeah, your sequence will be out sometime.
It works well, and when people develop the feet and like trying to learn how to develop the feet, I think that's why like people get hung up on these new feelings because it torques the board, yes, and it moves the board quick, and it's like, yeah, I'm giving it, right? But then if that becomes the only tool and trick you on the movement pattern, then that can become problematic to be efficient because then you'll need all sorts of movement to get back in line and centered and mobile, for example.
Yeah, this obviously this rider is very athletic. You can see there's some really good recovery moves that are happening. It's just that you can see that they're almost surfing. And if you want to use your arms, it is great. You can use your arms, but the other stuff has to be happening at the same time. Like you see some awesome Japanese riders that shred and they use their arms. And I quite frequently get asked, well, Japanese riders use their arms. I'm like, yeah, but look at their feet and their hips. They're still creating such good grip before they start going and adding that kind of rotational energy like Breen was talking about.
Mhm.
So this is really apparent in that dude. But I'm good. I don't need to talk anymore.
You're good.
Next.
I switched to sorry. You're good?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. I was
Anything
just
to add, Breen and Mike, on that video, or we're good? Okay. In the chat.
How to move into my basement.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about some carving. This was on a carving course, this footage. It's on a green run. And this person is probably about 45. So they're able to hold the edge really well, which is awesome. They're making some nice round turns. This person's stance is set up extremely ducked. So if you look at the surfer, the picture of the surfer, you can see they have a very open stance, which is allowing them to get very low, flex all of their joints, but keep all of their weight right over their feet because surfers aren't attached to their board, obviously. So if they move their mass away from their board, they're just going to fall into the water. So the first person, they're able to lean a lot and get quite a bit of their mass out over the snow, and that's allowing them to hold an edge really well on this green run. The next footage is of myself carving, and I'm on a 0, my back foot's 0 and my front foot's 21, so I have a much more open stance, much more like the surfer. So you'll definitely see some technical differences in the way that this person and myself carve down the run. The run I'm carving on is a dark blue or a black. So I have a more open stance on my feet, and what I'm doing is keeping my hips open and my shoulders open, which is allowing me to balance much more efficiently on the snowboard. So tonight we talked a lot about beginners and intermediates having a hard time getting their weight inside the turn. And this style of turn, I have quite a bit of weight inside the turn, but I need to make sure I don't put too much weight in. So I need to stack my body. So keep my shoulders over my hips, over my feet. Because if I know if I incline too much, then I'm going to have a major pressure spike at the end of the turn, and that's going to cause me to fall over. And you see that happen 2 times on my heel side in these turns. There's a pressure spike towards the end of the heel side, and I lose grip. So what I'm trying to do is keep my shoulders level with the hill, like I'm holding a tray of drinks, to try to keep as much mass outside of that turn as possible to manage pressure throughout. I'm on a park board in this, so it's not extremely stiff. It is quite a bit longer than most people ride. So managing pressure and balancing on the edge are the two trickiest things to make these turns happen. We talk a lot about breaking at the waist and how we don't want our students to break at the waist, which is true. We need to keep as much weight over our feet as possible. But you'll notice in this style of turning, I am breaking at the waist quite a bit. And if you look at where the weight goes, because I'm so open, I'm allowing the weight to go back over my feet, much like that surfer. So I am breaking at the waist, but I'm able to still balance along my working edge. And it allows me to get much lower throughout the turn. So if I had a duck stance and I was trying to do a squat, my bum would come out over the snow. And as I broke at the waist, I wouldn't have very much weight over my edge anymore and I would fall. So that's why I would not want someone to break at the waist. But if the rider changes and has a more open position, then breaking at the waist becomes efficient.
You've also established grip, so it allows you to do those movements, right? If you were trying to add rotation and you were broken at the waist, it might be a different story.
Right. So there's another picture of a surfer, and you can just see like how open their stance is, which is allowing them to flex quite a bit at all joints, get themselves very low so that they can get the edge angle as high as possible. The one way that we're getting our edge angle high on the snow is through angulation. So if we're stiff and we're kind of leaning, we can't get very much angulation. So this is another student. Oh, okay, we're back at
Yeah. Were you done the carving?
Yeah, we can move on to some other people if you want.
Good. Mike and James, do you have anything to add for the?
Oh, is there no more carving? I thought there was more carving, but maybe there isn't.
Oh, I think that was it.
No.
We were
Okay.
at
Yeah, so in comparison to the student, I guess if they want to carve down a steeper pitch, they're going to have to find a way to get lower, change their position to get lower, use less inclining and a little bit more angulation. And the way that I'm doing that is through having kind of a more open stance. But like James says, I can have an open stance as long as I edge the board before there's any kind of rotational movements through the turn.
Mm-hmm. We can maybe have a look again at the first rider here with
Sure.
mine.
So you can see this person doesn't really want to break at the waist, but they have to get lower. And as they do, their weight moves out over the snow, which is working for them on the green run. But as soon as they move to the black run, they would lose traction with the snow and slide onto their bum. Their shoulders are very close. So if you think of that tightrope walker analogy, it's very hard to balance when our shoulders are totally in line with our snowboard. And as we open up those shoulders perpendicular to our line of travel, then it becomes much easier to balance laterally on the snowboard.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody else want to comment?
Are there any questions in the chat? Well, I think that's good. You speak. I don't have anything else to add.
Cool.
Very nice.
Yes.
No comment in the chat. Okay, let's move to the next video. All right, we're gonna use some moguls.
Yeah. So first rider here, very smooth through the bumps. They're keeping a very round turn shape all the way down through, looking far ahead and super relaxed. Second rider here is not looking as far ahead, which doesn't allow them to adapt as quickly. So here, looking far ahead, relaxed upper body, lower body moving and really flowing with the terrain. It's here that the rider's hunting a lot more, looking a lot closer to the nose of the board, really kind of dealing with the bump that's coming right in front of them, which is causing them to be thrown around a lot. The other thing that's happening here is as they initiate the turn, there's a lot of upper body movement and a big look right across. They're trying to look far ahead, but rather than looking through the arc, they're looking right across the traverse. And it's making it a lot harder to adapt to that terrain effectively. The upper body also is it's getting thrown around a lot, with the lower body not moving in as relaxed a manner to really adapt to that terrain. And they're definitely surviving in this terrain, and they're making their way down, but they can get some improvements to find some flow as they tackle the bumps here. Thinking of center to mobile position, you can also see that that back knee kind of flexing in, which is getting them on the tail a bunch. The hips are coming back towards the tail as they kind of try to absorb the bumps. And so they're ending up out of center, which is making it harder to absorb the terrain effectively.
Breen and James, do you have anything you want to add on this one?
I just no, I think honestly, I'm just going to repeat myself. Person's rotating before creating established edge, and needs to be balanced. So when we saw Adam coming down there, what's happening really well, he moves his feet and he articulates the body to match the terrain, right? So he makes sure that he doesn't try to do anything too much, but the hips are right there inside the turn, right? He establishes grip and he rounds it out. Now, when you see the next rider come up, there's always a big anticipation with the upper body, right? There's a big movement, and there's the lack of like lateral move across, which all of the things that Mike talked about were present because of that, right? In my analysis of it, So really tippy, like you just have to stand on your board and move your hips a couple inches. You don't have to be that far inside the turn, and you don't need to make big rotational moves. What you want to try to do is do the least amount and get the most out of your riding, right? So, little foot movements, make sure the hips move across the board. Don't try to lean in too much, and don't rotate before you start the turn.
Yeah, and I would add here almost like a link at it with the previous videos we saw with Brains having the position slightly more open here would allow this person to do all of it, right? Because they're becoming close, and that's why you can see that their lines that they're shopping for is becoming a little bit more across. So that would be something to work on for that person to free that lower body, but by opening the position slightly.
Yeah, especially on the toe side, Jen. Thank you. Really closing those hips up to the top. And
sorry, I stole the punch here with my next video. Okay, you want to move on to the next person?
Yeah.
Oh, I had it on slow motion so we can observe.
Yeah. So here we can really even more that, like James was saying, there's just a big rotation, not getting that grip early in the turn, and they're trying to pivot that turnaround really quick, get onto that other edge, and then find balance rather than finding balance early in the turn and then allowing that turn shape to start.
Yeah, pretty much a front foot pivot, right?
Yeah, front foot pivot and then recover. Front foot pivot, recover.
Yeah.
And
So,
this person looks like they're really challenged by the terrain, which is awesome. So, I mean,
yeah.
a plan to move forward, try this terrain and back them off, bring them to a blue groomed run again, works on some things, and then bring them back here. And looks like through repetition, they'll do a lot better.
Yeah, even the first couple turns there looked a lot more confident, and then looks like it gets steeper, and then they get more pivoty,
Mm-hmm.
there, and then it looks like it probably steepens up, and then we get a lot more front foot pivot as it gets onto that steep pitch.
Mhm. They're really getting on the edge and getting blocked on the edge a little bit.
Someone was asking about recommended exercises for breaking pivots. I love the inverse traverse. That's one of my, I mean, it's very dangerous, but it's a great exercise to get people edging before they kind of feel themselves lose their balance and have to kind of throw their hips down the hill before any kind of twisting happening.
Mhm.
Yeah. Nice, flat, super wide open terrain with no traffic.
Also, a great place to start is at the bottom of the hill on the flat and work the movement pattern before they even try it in like moving. We always talk about, you can do the safe model, static, active, free experiment. So just doing something statically and then adding it to Breen's will help the rider build confidence with the movement pattern that you're trying to accomplish.
Mhm.
If you go back to basics and think about control, and we're using gas pedals to get people turning their snowboard, just getting them to think about stepping on the gas or stepping onto their ball of their foot to initiate the turn, or stepping onto the heel so that it can feel what it feels like to move onto the edge, as opposed to just rotating the shoulders.
Yeah, that's always a great point. I mean, going back to the basics of our uh, levels and what we do, how we teach people how to snowboard right off the bat. We're trying to build the right movement patterns there. So yeah, always going back there, man. Good call.
The foundation. Okay. That's the same run as the first or second rider we saw.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, um, again, that centered and mobile position, getting this rider finding themselves on the back foot um, a bunch as they're trying to manage the terrain, and
I can see it.
keeping those hips between the feet, allowing both legs to flex evenly, absorb the terrain. It's going to help them be a lot more stable.
You can see that there's a lack of mobility. Developing
Yeah.
mobility would be key to really tackle this terrain.
Yeah. And again, changing the terrain, building that mobility through some vertical movement on groomed terrain, as we've said a bunch. And that's kind of one of those key things is moving to bumps is building that vertical movement, that ability to absorb pressure and manage it, and then bring it back into the varied terrain is key way to make that happen.
Another great spot is the park.
Yes.
Yeah, get people used to moving around in varied positions and finding balance and
Yeah.
or rolls on the
Yeah.
hill.
Um, at Blue for Ontario folks, there's a great like 4-pack of rollers that just riding through those and absorbing those be really
Yeah.
effective. Cross courses, just getting that feeling of pumping and moving with the terrain.
Mhm. You can see also like the difference between the riders on the previous riders and our next rider here. the difference in the general attitude of Adam going down here, like the confidence and how he attacks the terrain, and like even sometimes he could, if the terrain is challenging, he could be out a little bit of balance, but because he's so stuck on his board, he's bringing it back really quick because he's agile as well. So these are some goals that we want to aim for when we're riding this type of varied terrain. I'd stay
Yeah.
still.
I think Adam's having fun there. He's playing on the way down, whereas some of the other riders, they're just, it's a bit of a chore for them. And they're fighting the terrain a little bit, where Adam's obviously playing in that terrain.
Yeah, he's not fighting.
Yeah. No, he's just flowing.
Lots of mileage, baby.
Yep.
And you can see like the consistency. It's very evident to see it in this particular terrain because it does a little bit of a couloir here, but you can see the consistency of the line he's choosing, and he's able to make those turns within that corridor width. Like he's not chopping for the line across, where here the Moguls are a little bit different here. They're a little bit more sharpened, but the terrain is less.
East Coast.
And so this person at some point you can see, well, traversing, looking for the best spot, but really there's always good spot to turn. They just have to spot them quicker a little bit, and that comes back to mileage of riding this type of terrain, right? As opposed to resist, you want to move with it. Let's let it play one more time. Is there any questions in the chats here? We have one more video to this session. Oh, we have a question in the chat now. Yes, this was not this one. This one is in Norquay, but the other one, Trevor, was in Mont Tremblant, Windigo on the north side.
Oh, sweet. All right. So the park's actually a really fun one to analyze because the parameters are a lot more specific. Like the environment is very specific. And so when you're analyzing park, what I want everybody to pay attention to is first the approach. We'll watch the video a couple of times, watch both riders, and just specifically watch the approach. I'm getting the chop show over here now, Mike. Go ahead, roll that again if you could, Jen. Thanks. So this rider's approaching and decides to make a last minute sort of adjustment sort of late in the in run of the jump. This rider in black there, he has a more chilled out approach. So he's taking the arc back. So he's decided on line now. So he's outside of the wedge. He's already decided on that card line. So he's established edge. He's established grip. And so he's able to do some stuff. Now this rider's riding in. Oh man, this is it choppy as heck for everybody, or because it's really hard to see for people. I already know the video, so I know what I'm going to say, but yeah. So anyways, I'll tell you what was happening. So the rider in black, the man in black here is got a really chilled out approach, really nice approach, deciding on his line, creating and establishing grip, which allows him to do the stuff in the park that we want to do. So it allows him to create some rotational energy. So through separation, He separates his upper body really well. Okay, so he's going for a backside spin. You can see the upper body rotates open, and then at the takeoff, he's allowed to release that energy. Whereas the rider with the red pants is late on the approach, does not establish as good a grip. So when he tries to release the energy that he wasn't really able to build up because he hasn't established a platform, it kind of just throws that energy out and his legs go out and things don't work out as well for his frontside spin there. So you can even see the legs kind of extend right at the lip. So what I would say for this individual is let's work on the approach. Let's find and establish grip through that arc. And then we'll practice being able to turn against that arc. So creating separation and then releasing that separation at takeoff, which the rider in black did really well. And then ended up spinning a 5. So the cool thing about I'm just gonna say the cool thing about Breen here is that he went to do a back 5, and because he didn't quite create enough rotational energy there, he created a good amount. He's athletic enough and balanced enough because of his takeoff and the way that he rotated. He's able to create more separation just to finish out that spin and land bolts and ride away. So if he didn't have the stuff that happened in the initiation phase, so on the way up the in run, creating that solid separation, creating good rotational force, he wouldn't have been able to recover from that. He probably would have landed, 450 or so and then had to shove it around on the snow. But because he was balanced and he's pretty aware, kind of like a little cat, he creates separation right at the end there and is able to ride away. Whereas the rider in with the red pants still spins, no problem. But in order to make it smooth and create that really nice smooth rotation, we want to work on that, creating the platform, being able to rotate on that platform, and then getting used to timing that release. So it's a nice, I'm on a spinny chair too, so this works. It's a nice, easy spin. Okay. Make sense? Anything to add? Anybody?
Seems like sorry, I'm just gonna jump in here to say I'm sorry if the video are choppy from the end of some people. It seems like some people got the video choppy from the whole session. Sorry about that. Don't really know what happened there, but on my side it looks really good.
I think with red pants there, one thing that is really impressive is while the approach was quick and kind of loses balance there, spots really well and brings it into the landing really cleanly, which is pretty
Yeah.
impressive. That air
What?
awareness. Yeah. So like you were saying, clean up that approach in the takeoff, James, and
Yeah. Athletic, like the person has the athleticism to do what they're trying to do 100%. Yeah. It's just, create that efficient rotational movement and you're good to go. Breen just did a really cool video, tech team, about separation, creating separation. It's key in the park, whether you're on rails or whether you're trying to hit jumps and spin big jumps. We need to be able to create separation of the upper and lower body to create rotational tension so that we can then release it to do something.
Mhm. Anything else you want to add, people? Good. There's no more questions in the chat. That was the last choppy video.
I guess both those videos are a good example. We often say that the spins are set with the hips and then controlled with the head and the arms. So in both those videos, the two riders are using their arms. Like after they've gone off the lip, they're trying to stay balanced or spin more. So they're using the arms and the head to get that done.
Mhm. Sorry, I'm just reading the comments in the chat. Yeah, thanks, everyone. Good stuff. So I'm gonna leave it on that slide so you can take a look a little bit because we analyzed and then we we did not get too much into the improvement plan. We suggested stuff, but obviously when you teach a lesson or a course, like you'd be taking a little bit more time with the student to be action focused. So positive feedback and action focus. These are things that are really important to keep in mind as we're going through the season. So focus on what to do and not what to avoid to create new learning pathways, right? To put the people in the right direction. So instead of putting in the mind of the person what they should be avoiding, we can see what they should be avoiding, but we should be promoting the new pattern of movement. Use cue-based, action-oriented language. Highlight the strengths and then guide the improvement. Ask reflective questions to encourage self-discovery, which means self-assessment of their own writing so they understand what's going on, right? Use future focused language and normalize experimentation. That's totally normal to be out of the comfort zone, like we mentioned earlier in the session, and to not have successful attempts all the time. Like if we're thinking freestyle and if we're working on a trick, it's going to take a lot of time before we nail this trick. It's going to take repetition. For most of us, or most of the time, it will take repetition before we nail it. So that's part of the experimentation. Same with the turning or with anything you're trying to do in any sport, really. Creating learning pathways and not correction. That goes back a little bit to the ideal here on focusing on what to do and not on to avoid, as a little bit digging deeper into improvement. Is there anything you want to add here, my dear presenter friends, colleagues?
I would just say there was a consistent theme throughout all of the analysis tonight. And if you take anything away from that, take this last little bit that Jen talked about in terms of giving people feedback. But when you're analyzing, look at the sequence. So we're always looking at the most important, the first thing that should be happening, right? Whether it's hitting a jump, it's the approach. If the approach is not on, we're not in a good spot. Whether it's turning, you need to move the body, the mass to the new edge, right? And it can make things a lot simpler to look at if you're looking at that kind of sequentially. So the important things that need to happen. So that's all I'd say.
Good. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks for participating. Thanks for being here tonight. There's going to be another session, I believe, October 21st. We have scheduled it. So be here, tune in, and have a great start of your season.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye.